everybody. It's Patricia, and I want to welcome you to today's show. Charles Eisenstein is with me. I think I'm gonna have him primarily introduce himself because I think that's going to be quite interesting. But I want to do a little bit of an intro. We're going to talk about sacred economics and economics based on love and generosity, and all the implications of how we deal with money and resources and community, and many of the things that that shape our lives. And just as a pre-intro of him and the topic, really, I was just telling him briefly that about 7 years ago, I was drawn. I was living in Boulder, and a man named Bernard Laeter, who was one of the people who helped design the euro. And had been, in the world of money and finance for a long time, did a course called The Future of Money. And so I spent the weekend and had my mind blown, because money's like air, like you don't think about it, you're just shaped by it. And I was really, really excited about the fact that there were people that were starting to rethink the way that we deal with money and how it shapes our lives, and what is it really, and what is it based on. And it was just mind-blowing. And then right after that, Jean-François Noubel, who is also, one of these guys, who are really in the conversation of rethinking, came, and I got excited. So Charles has just written a book called Sacred Economics, and is really one of the strong voices in the world right now, and a new voice, because it's a new area to begin to think about the world and money, and also the sacred element of it. And he's really, really beautiful. So I'm very happy that he's here. So welcome, Charles.
Thank you, Patricia.
Thanks for being here. And I guess I want to start with, I was curious when I read your background. You have a beautiful bio, and it was your story. So I'd love to hear, how did you arrive at sacred economics, and how did you arrive at this place that this is passionate and something that you're a revolutionary in?
How far back should we go? Teenage
whatever
years,
works.
childhood? Well, I'll take it back a little farther than usual, maybe. I went to, well, I'll start when I was a teenager, and, I was getting good grades in school and everything, and had a bright future, but somehow I couldn't really make myself fully buy into things. I felt that there was something wrong, something really deeply wrong. I didn't know what it was, but various things triggered that sense of wrongness. Even petty injustices in school. I just thought, like, it's not supposed to be this way, and I couldn't fully buy into it. And so I kind of spent the next, up through my 20s, really kind of, sometimes I would be half-heartedly participating in the program, going to Yale, and getting this degree there, and then my next thing after that is I went and got a job in a bar in Taiwan, but then sooner or later I found myself doing translation and kind of unintentionally rejoining the program, and I just kind of was going back and forth, but I really wasn't enthusiastic about fully participating in it. And it became really important to me to figure out what the root of this wrongness is. And that led eventually to lots of huge changes in my life, and writing the book The Ascent of Humanity, in which I traced the wrongness down to the defining myths of our culture, of our civilization even, which you could call separation. And then I wrote some articles, and one aspect of that is the money system, which is kind of like all of our institutions embody separation and cause separation to grow and grow until it reaches an extreme, and money is one of those. And so when the financial crisis hit in 2008, I wrote some articles about that, and the articles received a really big response, so I thought, okay, I'll write a book on this topic. So that's what I did. So sacred economics is about how to make money as sacred as everything else is. And sometimes, like, kind of new age thinkers say, well, money's just energy. So it's really, the problem isn't money, the problem is our attitudes about money. But that's not actually true, because money is designed in a way that like has built into it scarcity, and built into it competition, and built into it growth, endless growth. And so that's what I work with. I say, well, what would money look like if it didn't have these features built into it? Like, how could we design?
Let me just stop you for a second. So I just want to say that again. So what's built into the system, this is because it's worth underlining, is scarcity.
Yeah. Scarcity, competition, anxiety.
And endless growth. But endless growth is a good thing. Okay.
Right. Yeah. The system doesn't work if there's not endless growth.
Right.
As soon as growth slows down, then you have all these problems: unemployment, bankruptcies, defaults, debt, rising faster than income, all that. Yeah. So all the politicians want to return to growth, reignite housing starts, all that kind of stuff, increase consumption.
Right.
But then we look around and we're like, hold on, like, is that really what we need right now? Mm-hmm. More stuff, more houses. There's already like 19 million vacant units in this country. Like, we know that that's crazy, but we're kind of trapped in that system. So so I go into some of the economics of all that, and then also kind of the psychology of it and the mythology of it too.
Mm-hmm. Good. No, I got it. So, because I think it's one of those things that, because I love systemic thinking, is we often get caught on the thing. We don't look at where is this coming from that's innately built so that it doesn't work.
Right. Yeah, and also I wanted to think like...
So...
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to do is to take the conversation to the deepest possible level.
Yeah.
Because even people who are interested in monetary reform or economic reform, like, there's still kind of this idea that money is a slightly dirty realm, and spiritual things are always going to be opposed to money, or they're always going to be at least separate from money. Mm-hmm. But why can't we aspire to make money a beautiful thing that is your ally in doing your best work on earth? Like, why should it always be this, well, I would sure like to spend my life, restoring ecosystems and restoring wetlands and helping inner city youth or whatever, but there's no money in that, so I have to kind of do that separate from my money life. Like, why should that be? Because money is really nothing but society's agreement about what's valuable. So we've agreed to make certain things valuable, but not the things that are actually valuable.
Right. That's
so
true.
It's about bringing money into alignment with our changing consciousness.
So there's some different elements. So one is, which I think is really powerful, is just you highlighting, like, what is the system based on? And you just named another thing, which is that the amount of money that something costs and what actually has value are not necessarily related.
Right.
In fact, a lot of times they're not related. A Prada bag is, $2,000, and somebody who takes care of your children gets paid $10 an hour, maybe, or $15.
Right. Right. Yeah, and certain human activities. Yeah, and certain human activities don't earn money, and certain ones do. And why is that? Like, why do we value some things and not others? Mm-hmm. So here's a question then. So obviously, it wouldn't take people too much to go, yeah, I agree with you. What do you see as maybe some of the things that, what can change that? Because it feels big. It feels like you're inside this big system that you have no say over. Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that on one level, the answer to what will change that is that the current system will fall apart. And, that's that's how change seems to always happen, at least in my life. Mm-hmm. Like, if I might have, if things are working pretty well, then usually I don't change. Mm-hmm. Even if there's something in my mind that says, Charles, this is unsustainable, you're heading for a train wreck here, I'll still I'll ignore that voice, and I'll keep blithely proceeding on to my train wreck. And then when the train wreck happens, I'll be like, oh, now I see that what all those people were telling me is true, and then I'll start doing something else. And I think that societies and civilizations are like that too. Mm-hmm. As long as you can even pretend that it's still working, then you're not going to change. But it's only when there's a crisis, or in our case, there's many crises all at the same time, that the old world isn't working. The old world's falling apart around us. And I think a lot of people are getting that sense that the normal of their childhood, the normal even of the 1990s or whatever, it's not coming back. And when we get that, and we keep getting reminders of that are more and more intense, shocks, natural disasters, all these different crises on a collective level and a personal level, we get these reminders that are more and more insistent that normal is gone. And so through that process, at some point, we begin to create totally new things. So that's kind of the moment. We haven't quite really reached it yet, but it's close, And
well,
so, yeah.
Sorry. No, go ahead.
Well, so basically what I'm doing is, me and many, many other people, what we're doing is we're kind of telling the story of a different world, so that when the present story of the world falls apart, there's something that we can step into. Mm-hmm. So, and it consists of all the things that are marginal, alternative, holistic, complementary, like all that stuff. Mm-hmm. That'll be the new mainstream.
So speak a little bit more about that. So especially when it comes to money, because a lot of people don't think from, how could that be different? I mean, I have a credit card, it doesn't seem so. So what kinds of other ways can people see money, and what could they begin to lean into? There may be some things that are already to support rather than, some things to strengthen as everything else is falling apart.
Yeah. So see, there's a lot in that question. One thing is to, hold on, there's a distraction here. One thing is, okay. Well, maybe let me start with just a little piece about why money is the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Right.
As many people know, back when you took that course with Bernard, not many people knew this really. But today, many people know that money is created as debt. That it comes into existence when the Federal Reserve buys a security on the open market, or when a bank makes a loan. And it's not like they loan you somebody else's money that is already there. They actually create new money when they make a loan. So here I'm the bank and I'm going to lend you $1 million, Patricia. And now you owe me, so I just write 1 million in your account balance on my computer, $1 million. There's $1 million of new money. But that's created with debt too, because you owe me now more than $1 million. You owe me maybe $2 million over 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. And how are you going to pay me back $2 million when I only lent you $1 million? Well, maybe you're going to start a widget factory and sell lots of widgets, and people are going to pay you, and you're going to pay me back and become rich yourself, right? It works fine. But the only problem is that everybody's in the same boat. So if you're going to make that extra million from other people, they're trying to make it from other people, and they're trying to make it from you, and everybody is always in competition for never enough money. So the system would fall apart really fast. Half the people would go bankrupt in 10 years, right? Except for the fact that by the time these debts come due, I, the bank, have created even more money to use to pay back the original debts. But with that money comes even more debt. So everyone's always in competition for never enough money, and the system has to keep growing and growing and growing forever, which means that the realm of goods and services exchanged for money has to keep growing and growing forever. And we can see the results all around us, that we hardly do anything in our lives anymore that's not a paid service. Even cooking, people don't know how to cook anymore. Water, drinking water, you buy that. You didn't used to really buy that, childcare, recreation. You exercise even. You pay the gym or the yoga studio. People didn't used to pay for exercise when I was a kid. There weren't gyms, Entertainment. People used to sing a lot more 2 or 3 generations ago. People sang, played instruments, created, every town had its own marching band in the 1920s. So all of this has entered the money realm. And the crisis, and nature too, we've converted nature into product, and these relationships and community into services. So the crisis now is that there's almost nothing left to convert. Nature can't withstand much more conversion into product, and there's not much more community left either. And that's a crisis, because then I, the bank, have nobody to lend to. You don't have a business plan, Patricia, that you're going to make $2 million. So lending freezes, debt rises faster than income, wealth concentrates in fewer and fewer hands, and everything that we see today begins to happen. So that's the crisis, right? And so the question then is, what would money look like if it didn't necessitate and compel endless growth? And then you also ask, how can we personally align ourselves with that kind of world? So I won't go into the money systems right now, but you can ask me later. But on the personal level, we can begin to retreat from the money world in various ways by reclaiming some of these paid services and bringing them back into the realm of the gift. Because that's what it is. It's a gift. Even when mom cooks, instead of buying food at a supermarket deli, that's, she doesn't charge you when she cooks for you. Childcare, if you take care of your own kids, or if you if you plant your own garden, or learn to do things for yourself or for other people, and recreate, childcare co-ops, and time banks, where people do things for each other, couch surfing, and just these networks of reciprocity and sharing that allow you to do things without money. Yeah.
Hold on one second. We're going to take a break in a moment, but I want you to keep going. So when we come back, that there are, I think with the internet, and there's certain things that are supporting the possibility of us sharing again, and maybe, extending ourselves to each other in ways that we've completely forgotten, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk more about that after the break, but we're going to take just a second. Okay, this is Patricia Albere. I'm here with Charles Eisenstein, and he is the author of Sacred Economics. And we're in the middle of a conversation where he's speaking about some of the things that we've monetized in society. In fact, we've monetized pretty much everything we can think of, from water. Soon they'll start monetizing air, I would imagine. And then how to maybe, begin to look at that and then maybe do some reversals. So, keep following your thread, okay?
Yeah. Yeah, so we live in this monetized world where we don't even know each other anymore. We don't even know our neighbors, and we feel really alone. And we have such a strong desire to reconnect and to recreate these relationships. And one way to do that is through reclaiming the gift realm that I was talking about.
Yes.
The internet is also, there's a lot of gift economics on the internet too. The open source software movement, for example, or just, even YouTube and stuff. People are creating entertainment and putting it out there. And they're not charging each other for it. So these trends that I was talking about, they're beginning to show signs of reversing. And I think that when the money system falls apart more, when people enter economic crisis, when they lose their jobs, then they become much more reliant on the people around them because they can't pay for things anymore. So it can actually be a blessing. Like lots of kids are moving back in with their parents after they graduate from college, and people are all worried about this, but I mean, really, like the multi-generational home is normal throughout history. It's the single family nuclear, the nuclear family, that is an aberration that's never existed on planet Earth. And it means that, there's no grandparents taking care of kids and kids taking care of aging parents, and, those things are all monetized now. So I think that we're beginning to reclaim some of that.
There's one thing that you're speaking to, but I kind of wanted to underline it a little bit more and maybe have you make it even richer, is because I'm very, in the work that I'm doing with Evolutionary Collective and with relatedness, and deepening that sense of not being separate, in a lot of different dimensions, is I really loved what you said of how community and relationship, I think it's 50% of America lives alone.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about not even nuclear. We're talking.
Right.
Atomic. There's a lot of non-nuclear. Not even a nuclear family. I mean, women with just their kid. The one child. And so, I loved what you've said about needing each other, and that money and community, how those things are related. You've already been speaking to it, but if you can just say more, because I think it's really. It's been devastating.
The monetized life gives you the illusion that you don't really need anybody, because the only people you're connected to for your necessities, for your food, for your shelter, and even your pleasures, for your entertainment, the only people you're connected to are distant strangers. You don't need your neighbors. Like, if you alienate every single one of your neighbors, does it really affect your quality of life? Not really, if you have a monetized life. But that was different for an Amish person, or a peasant in the 17th century Russia, or a tribal person. Like, for them, their quality of life depended on everybody around them. And so we have this illusion that we're separate from the people around us, and separate from the biosphere, separate from the ecosystems around us. And we even aspire to that. It's called financial independence. And we think that it's good to not need anybody.
It's interesting, because it makes you, you really think about that, because I worked with the general manager at the Pierre Hotel, actually, in New York City, and they have condos in the Pierre. And this guy was beautiful. He should have been in charge of the world. He was just this beautiful guy. And he just said he had the hardest time with the super rich people that owned the condos, because they were mean.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have to learn how to be. And I'm not saying that super rich people are mean, because they're lovely people, but I can see how that system can make you not have to be relational. Right. Interesting.
Right. Because, it's like, I don't need you. Right. I can pay for somebody else to do it.
Yeah.
And that, but when we achieve that, when we achieve that paradise of financial independence, we discover that it's actually a hell, and that we don't have community, and everybody wants community. Right. But you can't have community without gifts. Community is the perception that I need you and you need me, and I'm grateful to you for what you've given. Or I'm grateful to the person who gave you what you gave me, and the person who gave that person who gave you what you gave me. Like this gratitude extends out, and it expands the self. And we're always talking about oneness and connection, and interdependency and interbeingness. Well, how does that actually happen? Is that just like some idea that you have in meditation? How does that actually happen? It happens through the exchange of gifts. Or not even exchange, it happens through the circulation of gifts. So in a money economy, like I explained with the whole interest-bearing debt scenario, right? We're all in competition for not enough money. So your bad fortune is my good fortune, because that's one less person to compete effectively. And your good fortune, that's my bad fortune. But in the gift economy, it's different. In a gift economy, no one accumulates. If you have more than you need, you give it to somebody else in in the community. And that's not just because you're a nice person. It's because that's where status and security and everything we would call wealth come from in a gift economy. Because if you give generously, then people want to give to you too. They want to take care of you too. So in that context, somebody else's good fortune is your good fortune too, because they'll have more to give. And somebody breaks their ankle or has some kind of problem, that's too bad for you too, because they're not going to contribute their gifts as much. So selfishness takes on a very different meaning. There's not this divide between selfishness and altruism. And even our sense of self becomes different. It's, you know, this felt sense of connection and this stirring within our hearts and this inner knowing that we're not separate. Today, in our society, it contradicts our lived experience. Mm-hmm. But the more that we enter into gift relationships with people, the more it aligns with our lived experience. And I think that
I was just going to say that part of what I'm feeling, you know, as you're speaking, you know, it's sort of like, wow, is some of it's simple. You know, I can imagine, you know, the vision, you know, that you and others are holding, you know, for the world of, that it could shift into a different way of being with one another, and but that in this very practical way, just mm-hmm. how easy, you know, I mean, if you just start thinking, okay, what could I share with others, you know, and breaking, there's some kind of selfish, you know, there's some kind of like, leave me alone, don't bother me, postmodern skin that we have. Mm-hmm. You know, we're so used to not having to do anything. You call AAA, you know, you don't have somebody help you with your tire. And so there's something about, like, maybe just pushing against that tendency to want to be left alone and not be bothered.
Right.
Just a little bit to find out, because the moment you do something, you feel that beauty of the connection.
Yeah. I think that part of it is, maybe not even pushing against, but part of it is just realizing that there's something unfulfilled mm-hmm. in us.
Yeah.
You know, this desire to give and to receive too. It's a kind of a new age cliche that people have fear of receiving, but it's not just because, oh, you know, I'm afraid I'm not good enough and I don't deserve and all that kind of stuff. It's also I think it really comes down to a fear of being in relationship. Yeah. Because when you receive fully, then you are in a state of obligation to that person, or a state of gratitude, you might say. But you feel like, yeah, now I owe them one. Mm-hmm. Or I owe society one, or I owe the universe one, because I've received so much. So we do all these things to kind of block the full experience of receiving, mm-hmm. so as not to enter into the state of obligation, so we can stay separate. And just for me, like, just even observing that happening has released me a little bit from that. Yeah. And I've been like, yeah, I guess I'm okay with being dependent. Like, let's not even say, you know, interdependent. Let's say it like it is, dependent.
Yeah.
Like, we are so dependent. We're dependent on the trees that make our air. We're dependent on the farmers that grow our food. You know, we're dependent on the earth to hold us up, the sun. Like, we are so dependent. Everything that we have is a gift. Our breath, our life, everything's a gift. Yeah. And I think that knowledge is inherent in everybody. And because of that, and I think that's what really drives us to want to give in turn.
It'd be good, too, to brainstorm. I could imagine, you know, like being like in a relationship with somebody else. You know, even if you just had one person and you're having coffee, you could brainstorm about what are the ways that you could begin to share resources, mm-hmm. and, you know, that don't depend on money.
Yeah.
And then just pick something and start to enact that, because then that flow, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, part of what mutuality is sort of a big thing in my work and teaching, and influence, you know, feeling the influence of each other. and wanting to feel it. It's kind of like a relationship is that you influenced me, and that I've influenced you, instead of that there was no exchange. If there's no exchange, like, what's that? That's nothing.
Yeah.
So, I'm sort of dealing with it on other levels, but that someone did something for you, and that you were able to show up and actually be of real service to someone is the nature of what we care about as human beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really love that you're bringing that that conversation back, and then it doesn't seem so overwhelming. Like when you talk about the whole money system, you just get this feeling like you're inside of a machine that you're just gonna you can't do anything about. But this feels so accessible.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, like, once you kind of, like, you don't have to, like, all of a sudden, step 100% into the gift. But I think, like, every small step, like, even if you just, like, the feeling if someone asks you for directions, and, like, you say, you go down there, turn right, turn left, and they drive off, and you feel really good.
It's true.
That is crazy from the point of view of the separate self that seeks to maximize rational self-interest and all that kind of stuff. Like, why should you feel good about giving some total stranger directions and nobody even saw you do it? No one's going to think you're great because of it. You're not getting any social benefits or economic benefits. Why? But you just feel good. And that's kind of a signature of our nature that wants to give. And like,
I have a question. I know you have teenagers.
Yeah, I've got a couple teenagers.
You've got how old are they?
Jimmy's turning 16 soon, and Matthew is 13.
How have you seen, being able to maybe share this perspective with them? How does that translate for a teenager? In this world, in this modern world, I wonder how.
I guess the older one is, like, really starting to be interested in these things. The younger one's not so much,
Yeah.
It's just kind of dad with his thing.
Right.
But and I think that, like, a child really is primarily in the phase of receiving.
Right, that's true.
Yeah. But when you hit adolescence, then you want to give too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And love becomes something more than just receiving.
Yeah.
I think humanity is going through that transition right now. Our relationship to Earth was one of receiving.
Right.
And so we saw nature as resources. And we grew, we grew and grew. And you could say that our money system was appropriate for that phase. But now the growth is over. And it's time to enter the adulthood of the species, which is a relationship of mutual love with Earth, and to give as well as to receive, and to develop in other ways that don't involve growing bigger.
Yeah, interesting, because it's like when you're a kid, like, you just think it's normal, your body just keeps changing.
Yeah.
And then if that were to keep happening, you would just be, like, huge.
Right.
You could only have about 1,000 people on the planet.
Right. Yeah.
So we're going to take another short break, and then we'll be back with Charles Eisenstein very shortly. Okay, it's Patricia Albere, and I'm here with Charles Eisenstein talking about sacred economics, and it's a great conversation, I think. I can feel the realness of what you're presenting. It's not just like a great theory. It actually, I can feel it in my body. I can feel it in my heart. I could see it in, changing my life, actually, this conversation. So I was wondering, we were speaking about community and meeting each other, and, that money have, the way that we've construed it in our postmodern world, it's, we've gotten more and more isolated, and to the point that we don't need anyone. If you have enough money, you can pretty much just pay for everything. You can buy a new wife, whatever it is that you need.
Right.
I was thinking about how would you, like, there's so many spiritual groups, there's so many groups of people and churches, and, different situations where you have gotten to know those people and you do have some relationship with them, do you have suggestions for like things that they might, or conversations they might have to actually deepen the connection and to begin to rely on this gifting?
I think that the level of connection that you can have with somebody based purely on it's usually limited, or even getting to know someone and telling each other your stories and stuff like that. Like, I think that real, authentic, intimate connection has to involve a kind of a material component to it. You have to, we're embodied beings, and I think that we have to serve each other on that level as well, to have full experience of connection and oneness. Otherwise, it gets kind of conceptual, and you can see that people can drop out of the group, and does their life really change that much? So one way to remedy that is to well, there's a lot of ways to do it. One way is something called a gift circle, where you sit in a circle with maybe between 10 and 20 people, and you just go around. Everybody, first on the first round, everybody names something that they would like to give, something that they would like to offer. Or maybe, well, I don't know, can't remember which way the rounds go, but the second round, then everyone names something that they need, that they would like to receive. And so as you go around, and someone says, oh, I really need, I don't know, a potato masher, and then someone else in the circle says, oh, we have 3 of those, and like these kind of synchronicities spring up, or someone might be like, yeah, I need, topsoil. I'm putting raised beds in. Someone says, oh, we just excavated a swimming pool. We have or I know somebody who excavated a swimming pool, and so there's like these kind of alignments of gift and need that arise. And then you can have a third round where you say something that you're grateful for having received from the last meeting. And so this allows people to meet each other's needs and to develop these bonds of dependency without using money.
I love that. What is it? What do you call it? Gift circle?
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
I got the idea from Alpha Lowe, who has written about it. I have an article on it in Yes Magazine.
Okay.
If you Google around, you'll find it.
Well, just to underline too before, because we'll do this at the end as well, but what is your website so if people want to find you? I mean, Sacred Economics is the name of your book, so I'm sure if they Google that, they'll find you. What is your website?
I guess the main one to look for would either be charleseisenstein.net,
okay,
or ascentofhumanity.com.
Okay, and that's your other book?
Yeah.
Right, okay, all right, good. So yeah, so there's the gift circles that...
Right, right. Yeah, that's one thing.
So simple.
It's so simple, and it really can develop. Once people have that sense of trust, and they have the experience of seeing that I can give. Like it doesn't matter. I can give because other people are seeing me give, and other people are giving to me too, and it makes you feel a lot safer about giving. And you kind of, you relax that tight kind of ego protective, will I be okay if I give, and so it develops kind of a new mentality, and then once that trust builds up in that circle, then you feel also fine about calling someone, when you're not having the meeting, in the week, during the week or whatever, and it gets more and more informal. So that's one thing I think that people can do. And then there's on a larger scale, there's time banks and things like that. I'm not going to go into that right now.
Yeah.
On a personal level, though, I think there's also this kind of reorientation toward living in the gift, and it just comes from that for different people it comes in different ways, but it could come from an experience of connectedness or witnessing some huge moving act of generosity, um, and so it means like approaching life and approaching every situation with the awareness of there's something that I'm meant to give here.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, our educational system cuts people off from that feeling. It emphasizes being competitive and finding a way to make a living. In other words, finding a way to take. So it's not gift-oriented.
Right.
It should be, school should be, let us help you discover what it is you want to give to the world. But we can, despite the impediment of our educational system, we can still develop that way of thinking in ourselves and for each other too. And just to see life as this opportunity to give, and that's why we're gifted ourselves.
Well, I think that can be practical too. I mean, coming from, I don't know, why I was sort of karmically lucky, but I started to work for Werner Erhard when I was 18. Mm-hmm. And I just, surrendered and started to do that. And, we didn't make like a lot of money, but I just knew I was so passionate about what I was doing, and I was so young that I could never go back to being any other way.
Yeah.
And I could never see the point, and I realized I could never work for money. I could never just work for money.
Right.
I just couldn't do it. I mean, I would die. And
right.
Because I knew that I couldn't and I wouldn't ever, then I'd never have. Do you know what I mean? It's like I've been able to always do what I love, for the last 40 years, which has been pretty amazing. And I think you have to add a certain component, which is do what you love, but then get really good at it. It's like then it's incumbent upon you not to just be sort of, oh, I love this, and but to really learn, to become masterful, and to really let yourself become very competent at the giving. That your giving is actually done well, so that the universe can actually support you in it.
Yeah, and I think that we have a natural drive to do that. Kids, once they find something that they love to do, they'll be like obsessive with it.
Totally.
Like my 13-year-old, he's got these yo-yos now. It's not like we have this ideology that says you have to make kids learn. You have to have these grades, in a system of shame and reward and threat.
Right.
But when they find something that they want to develop, they're unstoppable.
It's true. It's really true. I mean, so I think that's more so I just, just as a demonstration of somebody who's somehow, in this particular lifetime for 40 years, that it worked, that it works, but you do have to keep becoming current with your competency. You need to stay passionate and continue to learn so that what you have to give translates into being actually useful for the world as well.
Yeah.
It isn't just like you playing bad jazz that nobody wants to listen to.
Right.
Right? That could happen too.
But I think that we have a natural urge to do that anyway.
To get good. Yeah, to get good at things. Is there what else would you like people to know? What are you excited about right now? What's kind of current for you on your evolutionary edge?
I think, for me, I think I've been deepening, and I don't want to make it seem like, I think of everything in terms of the gift.
Yeah.
But it is a powerful concept for me.
Yeah.
And one thing that's been happening is that I've been realizing more and more just how much comes to me as a gift, even the things I used to take pride in, and how a lot of the judgmentality associated with not understanding the gift nature of the universe, it's becoming obsolete. So for example, so say, why is my life maybe more together than so-and-so's life, who's just sitting on the couch all afternoon drinking beer, and he just doesn't, and I want to be better than him. So I want to say, well, at least I got up and did something about it, or at least I was open-minded, or at least whatever, right?
Right.
But I've been realizing that, like, when I've been in that situation, like glued to the couch, unable seemingly to bestir myself, was it actually that I finally gathered my will and did it? No. Like that will was given to me. Yeah. All of a sudden, I could do it now. Or how about when I was closed-minded and didn't see? Well, all of a sudden, something opened my mind. Or how about when I was wallowing in self-pity and self-rejection, and like maybe those people, they just need to love themselves more. And you go out there and you say, you have to love yourself more. And how did I learn to love myself more? It was because somebody, more than one person, but people loved me so much that I learned self-love from the gift of their love. Mm-hmm. And for me, this realization of just how profoundly I am gifted is liberating, because it kind of frees me, it's like it frees me to be generous, because it was given to me anyway, I didn't earn it.
Right.
Like I didn't earn being alive. I didn't earn being nursed as a baby. I didn't earn my breath. I didn't earn all of these things. So that frees me to give it more freely. And
it's interesting too, just I want to say something about what you're saying so beautifully is there's also David Hawkins has this level of consciousness, and then pride is the level that is still exhausting. It still kind of brings people down, and I think you're answering sort of the reality part of not having pride, which is how can you even come up with having it? Because when you actually see the reality of our connection and the fact that it's all given to us, basically, it ruins that whole perspective.
Right.
It's sort of destroyed. And so that's also, from a consciousness standpoint, is really giving to the world in a big way, because it's allowing us to rise, to rise in a way where, for the first time, there's positivity, there's generosity, there's willingness, there's courage, there's ways in which we're actually giving to life instead of, like you said before, taking. So
yeah.
I just want to remind everyone, so it's charleseisenstein.net and Sacred Economics. You should definitely go online, since you're online probably right now. Get his book. Will immerse you in the reality that he's been sharing, which is really so beautiful. So, last words?
Well, mostly this conversation has been about the kind of personal and psychological dimensions of it.
That's true.
A lot of the book is also about the kind of policy level, like what would the money system look like, that kind of stuff. It's about half and half, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, that's good to see too, because otherwise it looks too unbelievable. I know that you're a brilliant thinker and a revolutionary, so to have the how it would really look in the world, part of it is really important. So, and thank you because my sense of you is that you keep following your own intuition, your own sense of being guided in this in your work. So it'll be interesting to see what shows up next.
Yeah.
And I want you to know, with the groups, I absolutely, what you said, I will take to heart. I think it's brilliant. We'll definitely start to see, sharing as many aspects of connectedness as we can and helping each other. So I really love that. So thank you. And I want to just tell people a little bit about next week. So May 1st, I can't believe it's May. Next Tuesday, I'm going to be doing the show that I do once a month, which is where I do a show on something that I'm interested in. And Danny Katz, who's an award-winning journalist, is going to be kind of interviewing me and talking with me. And the name of the show is called "The Rarity of For Realness." And it's, it's another element of just looking at, how do we keep building trust? How do we keep showing up for each other? How do we keep our agreements with each other and, be in that interconnectedness in a way that we're actually responsible for how it affects each other. So we're going to have a conversation about that in our relationships and friendships and in our culture and some of the cultural aspects that have made that a little harder than it was for my mom and dad. So thank you, and we'll see you next week. And thank you again, Charles, and I hope everyone has a great week. Okay,
Thank
bye.
you so much.